Hey everybody, welcome to the Aficionerdo podcast. I'm David Moulton.
And I'm Elaine Eightbytes.
Let's get right into it.
Hey, David.
Yeah, what's up, Elaine?
Have you been nerding out lately?
You know, I was kind of keeping on the DL, but yeah, I have actually.
Go figure.
I know. What?
Amazing. What have you been doing?
Okay, so I feel like I've been all over the place. So I've been playing the game Don't Starve, and I'm not good at it.
Oh, have you been starving?
I've been, I haven't been starving, but I've been like, oh, I think I can attack this spider thing and then dying. And it's not like other games where like you die and you respawn somewhere nearby where you died or something. Like when you die, it's game over. Like you got to start over from the beginning and do everything you just did over again. And I think I just need to be more conservative in what I do and in that game. But it's so hard because I want to adventure and everything's so new. And I'm like, I want to try this, I want to try that, I want to see this, because like all the Let's Plays I've seen were a couple builds ago. So the current build has a lot of new stuff, a lot of different things that you can do.
Oh.
And the game doesn't tell you how to do anything. It's just like, hey, welcome to this world. Like, there you go. So
Is there a wiki?
probably I haven't broken down that far yet.
No cheating, no looking at the wiki?
I might. I'm not going to say no cheating because I mean it doesn't tell you what to do, so you have to. The only reason I know how to do anything is from watching the couple of Let's Plays I've seen, and seeing people do it that way. So I've been doing that. I've been watching Fraiser, like we discussed last time.
Good. You're still on your Fraiser kick. Very good.
Yeah, it's only like 1 million episodes. So
yeah, you'll be doing that for a while.
watch one a day or maybe so. Yeah, I know, forever. Okay, so we touched on that. I recently moved, and I'm living with a couple now. So I have my roommates now, and they watch a good amount of TV. I mean, they have a DVR and they DVR like the shows that they like and watch them after the baby's in bed. And I've been hanging out with them, so I've watched Being Human, which I found to be really interesting, and I'm kind of like, no, I got to go back and watch it from the beginning because that's pretty cool.
So, short synopsis of Being Human is?
The very, very basic principle is a vampire, a werewolf, and a ghost all live in a house, and they want to live as if they were humans.
Okay.
And kind of integrate into society.
And this is on?
Sci-fi.
Okay. Sounded very sci-fi.
Yeah, it's also a well acknowledged British version that came first.
Oh, okay.
So there's an American version and there's a British version, and I think they're both still running.
Okay.
But it's surprisingly good. Like I thought it would just be like really cheesy, but I mean the point where I'm at, the werewolf had been cured of his lycanthropy and he just recently got reinfected, so now he has to deal with being a werewolf again.
Oh.
And the ghost found someone to resurrect her, so she can like leave the house and stuff. But she's finding all these things wrong about her resurrection. Turns out that she was resurrected, but she's now a zombie. So
Does she crave brains?
Well, she craves flesh of the living.
Wow.
But so she found herself like a mouse got trapped in the mousetrap, and she ate it because she was so hungry. And then if she doesn't eat flesh of the living, she starts rotting.
Oh no!
But then when she eats flesh of the living, she heals up. So it's kind of like
problems.
Yeah, and then the vampire, like there's like it's pretty interesting because like you know how everyone was getting the flu last year, or really bad. Like they had a thing where if you had the flu and a vampire fed off of you, the vampire would die from the flu. So that like the vampires are kind of half extinct, and yeah, it's way more interesting than I thought it would be. I mean, it definitely had. I mean, I've seen 3 episodes now, and there's definitely like the last episode I had that WB kind of drama music playing, staring out the window kind of thing going on. But other than that, it was pretty fine.
Poor supernatural creatures who only want to be human.
I know, they just long for it so much. So the thing is I think this group is supposed to be very different from their, you know, genres. Like all the other werewolves take pride or don't want to be human, and all like the vampires feed on the humans, and the ghosts haunt or have to deal with their own thing. So,
Well, all right then.
yeah. It's all I can say is if you feel like getting into something new, give it a shot. And along that same line, was it last night or 2 nights ago? I found myself watching Once Upon a Time.
Uh-huh.
And
so what do you think of Once Upon a Time?
I want to know more.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's good or bad. I'm just like,
it's okay to have a guilty pleasure. It's okay.
Yeah. I think one thing for some like nerdy people and me specifically is like when I'm introduced to something, it doesn't necessarily have to be great, but if it has like a mythology or backstory that I'm interested in, I will then need to consume that knowledge for no purpose whatsoever. I want to know what's going on. And
Once Upon a Time is a story. It's a fairy tale based show which puts all of fairy tale land into reality, and there's a curse. So especially if you're American, you know these fairy tales, and that is the hook. And it is not exactly the best show ever, but it is interesting. And one of my favorite things about Once Upon a Time is Rumpelstiltskin being as big of a villain. Like, he's like the big bad. Like, it would keep going back to Rumpelstiltskin again and again and again. It's like, well, what are they going to do with this? Because they've really blown this character up as a big problem. You know,
he's not just Rumpelstiltskin. He's also Beast from Beauty and the Beast, and he's the crocodile from Captain Hook. And so it's that just, and the actor, I love that actor.
He's great. I don't know his name though.
I can't remember what it is either. I first came across him in Stargate Universe, which is my favorite Stargate series.
So yeah, if you like fairy tales, anybody who hasn't seen this yet, you like fairy tales, go ahead and watch it on Netflix. Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Yeah. I mean, I saw a new episode, so I'm gonna have to go back and watch it.
Yeah.
So just to wrap up, I have 2 more things. I've been watching some Let's Plays of SimCity and been incredibly jealous because it looks freaking awesome. And anyway, I know that we were going to talk about it later, so we'll get into a little bit more of that later. And I picked up Battlestar Galactica: Blood and Chrome.
Oh. Which
is the new, and it was a web series. It's a like prequel of. Are you familiar with the series?
No.
Okay. One of the main characters is pretty old in the series, and this is him when he was like a young cadet in the First War, because the series takes place during the Second War with the Cylons. So it's supposed to be pretty good. I have the whole series and all the spin-offs and everything. Well, not Caprica, but so I picked this up. I have to watch it, but I'm looking forward to it.
About how many hours do you think it is?
The Blood and Chrome's an hour and a half.
Oh, okay, so not that long. Okay.
No, it's like a mini movie or whatever. It's the web series put together. So.
Well, tell me if it's any good.
I will.
Excellent.
How about yourself?
Oh, well, indeed. There is not a week that goes by where I am not a nerd of some form or another. What? I know. Surprising. So I've been playing, especially in the last week, I ended up playing a lot of the Star Wars MMO. It is currently free to play. They've added in some extra things like, online systems, they have the fake money currency. You put in your real money, you get fake currency, and you can buy different parts of the game and unlock different parts of the game, as opposed to having a subscription. But I still subscribe to Star Wars as a monthly thing, and then I'll also get what they call them cartel points or cartel money, and it'll have all these interesting things. Anyway, the game is still doing very well, and I'm waiting for a patch, and I'm just having a lot of fun with it. Right now, or at least this week, I was having fun with a Sith assassin who's light side. So if you can imagine, I'm going through the game with all the evil things and all these evil plots, and every time that I have a light side option, I take it just to see what the game does. So my Sith will save people, will do the positive ethical reaction. So there's lots of situations where it comes out, and I'm just choosing light side, and it's pretty funny how it's working out, because my character is both evil by default, but then whenever the situation comes up that I have to choose side, it's light side. So I like changing it up like that. I'm having a lot of fun doing that. Just kind of messing with it. And then, other than Star Wars and enjoying that, I'm reading a book called Arabat, and it is written by Clive Barker, and it is about a young lady named Candy Quackenbush. Okay.
What a name.
Yes, and she's like a teenage girl. She's frustrated with her life in Chickentown, Minnesota. I'm not kidding. And she kind of ends up getting caught up in another world.
Oh,
But I would say that this is a very enjoyable read. Clive Barker has a very strong. I like his narrative style quite a bit, and I'd have to say that if anybody enjoys a fantasy, kind of like a mysterious sort of what's going to happen next fantasy about this girl. Um, she starts on an adventure. She ends up going to the remains of a lighthouse. She's in the middle of Minnesota, but she actually ends up summoning an ocean. And,
what?
and then she ends up traveling across this ocean to the land of Arabat, which is 25 islands, and there's a host of interesting characters and amazingness. And this book, I am enjoying it. It's very nice. I would call it a lighter read, a lighter to medium read, but it's delightful in that way.
Huh.
So I'm having a lot of fun with this book, and I would recommend it. And then I also this week talked to my husband about our next convention that we plan on going to in October,
Okay.
which may or may not mean that I'm showing some artwork then, which is kind of like a real life thing. I don't know if that's necessarily
Well, that's nerdy. I mean, it's its own little
nerdy.
nerdy thing. Okay, so what convention? Can you say?
Oh, yeah, I don't mind saying. I'm going to go to Archon, which is in St. Louis.
Okay.
And if I can get, interviews with the guest of honors or any of the artists or anything there, or if I can have some fun with the cosplay, I can do a little segment or a report on Archon for St. Louis.
Nice.
Definitely. Um, and let's see what else. I have been following the SimCity release because I can't afford the game myself right now.
Yeah,
Um,
that's exactly what I'm
but
doing.
but on the other hand, I'm kind of glad that I don't have it because there are some shenanigans going on with SimCity. And
Yeah, yeah.
EA might be. So anybody who's following SimCity or interested in it, basically EA made this an online only game, supposedly. Officially, this is what they're saying. You cannot play this game offline, which I'm not a fan of that. Every SimCity up until now has been a personal city simulator, and I don't have a problem with that format. I don't need to get online and interact with other people's cities. I'm not necessarily, as a gamer, I know that I'm a social gamer, but that's not always what I want out of my gaming experience. I would like to be able to walk into my computer room and sit down at my computer and play a game without needing the internet.
Yeah, I'm a little. I don't understand that. I think that's.
I think it's a poor move on EA's
Yeah.
part because this game doesn't need the internet to be a fun game. It doesn't. But having the internet as an option is a big positive, but they went too far. So what
Yeah.
happened is in its release, you had to sign on to their servers, and their servers couldn't handle the capacities. They weren't ready. They had tons of bugs. They had to do patches, and nobody could play. So then the real question came around, is this actually an online-only game? And people are currently proving that you can play the game offline. You can. They're people, this is what happens with the fans and everything. They get, upset and then they prove the
They'll
company
break the
wrong.
game to the
Yeah,
point where they can do what they want.
right.
Okay.
And EA is still officially, as of today, when we're recording, EA is still saying that you can only play this game online, that it only functions online. But there are YouTube videos that prove otherwise
Yeah.
already. So it's like, EA, don't mess with the smart people. Don't mess with them.
This game looks so pretty, Elaine.
Oh, I want to play it. I do. It looks
Yeah.
complicated and wonderful, but also, I was watching a Joe Hills preview on it, and he was playing with his wife, and the road system seemed a little wonky. It seemed a little like, there are things about this that I know that I wouldn't like once I encountered them. But for the most part, it was SimCity. It was SimCity with the same sort of concerns, the economy. It looks like they added some more resources in there.
Yeah.
They changed the way that you don't have to worry about water pipes or electricity lines anymore.
I thought that was really cool. It
I
just
was,
goes along the road.
yeah, it just goes along a road, which is what anything ever did. That's what, I mean, when you play the game, that's what you ended up doing anyway.
Yeah.
So it's very good. I'm glad that they've changed some of the things, and it looks like an amazing game. And one day I'll play it, but I am happy to wait right now
Right. So,
because it's a rough launch. So
right.
let them figure
I
it out.
I have heard that it's been getting a little bit better.
Yes,
Like
they are
as
fixing it.
as you know, the people are able to get on more and more easily.
The
So, but
game, yeah, it'll be fine.
yeah. But along that lines, someday in our hypothetical future,
Hmm.
we should play this game together.
We should, and we
Yeah.
will
And
one
I
day.
will pump my city's poop into your city.
No, I don't. Wait, hold on. I,
You can do that.
you can be downwind of my coal mine then.
My air pollution, no.
So, and then the last little bit I found out just today, and I am super, super excited. Have you ever heard of the game The Neverhood?
It sounds familiar.
Okay, so Earthworm Jim, yes?
Uh-huh.
Skull
Yeah.
Monkeys. Have you heard of Skull Monkeys?
Oh, wasn't that a villain?
That is made all by these are three games all made by the same man,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Doug Tin. I want to say his last name is Tin Nepal, but I forgive me if I'm wrong. But Doug made these games, and back when these games came out, they were mid 90s games, and the Neverhood is in the same family as point and click, figure out the mystery, figure out a puzzler, walk through a world, experience a story through these puzzle solving things. So games like that being like Myst. Okay,
Okay.
so the Neverhood is like Myst, and this was a mid 90s game that was clay animated,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that is how he made it. And but when he got the money, he got the money from a company that was bought out eventually by EA. So he doesn't own the rights to his own game. He doesn't own the character rights. He doesn't, and the anything that he made with the Neverhood, it's not actually his because the the money that funded that game owns the game. This is
Yeah.
very typical. So he's going to just make the spiritual successor to it. He has finally given up trying to get the rights back from EA or the permission from EA to make Neverhood 2, but instead, all he's going to do is make the spiritual successor. And he's just going to make it slightly different, and he's going to make his game anyway. I am
Oh.
so excited that he's doing this because, one, why should I mean I think that's a shame that if somebody wants to make like if he is the creator, the artistic mind, the person who made this game and it's owned by this company. I understand the company owns it, but I don't understand why the company wouldn't allow him to continue creating. I think that's wrong on some
Yeah.
fundamental level. Like it's been like 10 years. Let the man make it,
Right.
if he really wanted to, let him make. So I am excited because his games are quirky and they're different and they're technically skilled in ways that I found exciting back in the 90s. So I really want to see what Doug Tin Nepal, I want to see what he's going to do with today's technology. And see what the spiritual successor is going to be like. I am super, super, super excited about this news. And I'm glad I got to share that. So, one thing I'm going to put down in the informational bar is in the Neverhood, there is a scene that has made me laugh all my life. He actually put in a scene where your character walks up to a tree and the tree has oranges. Let's call them oranges. And you take the fruit from the tree and he takes the fruit and he, gives you a small burp. He's like, burp. Okay, great. If you have him eat another fruit, he will burp for a longer period of time. It goes from a little burp to a really rather a sizable burp. Okay? So at that point, the gamer is like, well, what happens if I eat the fruit again? He puts in a 3-minute burp.
What?
And that is the link. I'm gonna this sequence, and it is one of the most epic burps. And I remember when I first did that in this game, I was like, I've broken the character. Like that, there comes a moment where it's like, yes, this is going to keep happening, but it's like to a ludicrous degree. So there comes a point when you're watching the character burp, and the sound of the burp and all the different sounds coming out of the character and this burp, and you're like, when is it gonna end? And it made me laugh so hard. Good memory, like really funny memory for me. So that's why I want this guy to make another game. That was amazing. Like, it's like, oh really, you're gonna eat the third one? You're gonna eat the third one? This is what happens when you eat the third one. So
I'm actually pretty pumped for that. I love Earthworm Jim, so I'm a fan.
Same guy. Definitely. So we have some listener feedback. Some
listeners. Should we start calling them Lisas?
listeners. So Ron had a question, I guess, or when I said, hey, do you guys want us to talk about anything next? Ron was the only one who replied, and he said, you should talk about drawbridges and if you love them or hate them. And I said, sure. But I mean, I don't know if he was serious or sarcastic, or if that was just a random question from Ron.
Whatever, this will teach him.
I like drawbridges. Yeah. Just for the record, I think they're cool.
Do you have drawbridges near you? Do you
nope. I don't have to deal with them, which is probably why I like them.
Yeah, I was thinking, when looking over our notes, I was like, I don't have to deal with them. And whenever I see them, I'm always like, this is a pretty cool thing that we have as a society, as people. But I bet if I had to live with them and cross over, and be stopped and not be able to go and stuff, I would probably be pretty pissed off. But Ron's in Chicago, right?
I guess.
Yeah, I think he's in Chicago.
Ron, are you in Chicago? Tell us.
Well, they have a lot of drawbridges there.
Oh, okay.
So
I guess he has to wait on them. He doesn't take, like, if he's waiting in line, he's staring at a drawbridge. It's like, yeah. So what is Ron thinking? Drawbridge.
Now, we have a lot of covered bridges around me, so I'm used to dealing with covered bridges.
Okay.
When you get on them, you kind of wonder, how is this holding my car up?
Maybe we should do a whole show about amazing bridges and
bridges.
Bridge technology.
Yeah, as well as Nash bridges.
How about our listeners tell us? Is this something you want us to research? Do you want us to find something about bridges? We can talk about them. That's fine. And
please let us know.
Yeah. The other bit of news here is Carter Kalchik, one of the co-hosts of the Five Things podcast, tweeted at me this week and said, I think it is time that we watch Clue and discuss it over a podcast, essentially. So we're going to try to do that. Now, timing is always difficult. The more people that you get involved in something, and the more difficult it is to actually have everybody sitting at their computer at the same time to discuss it.
Right.
I think chances are good, though, that this Sunday that we'll be talking about Clue, which is one of my favorite movies of all time.
I don't know if I've seen it.
Well, now you have until Sunday. It's on Netflix.
I'm going to, yeah.
It's up, everybody. Go to Netflix, watch Clue. Done, period. I'm talking about it at some point in time. Maybe not this Sunday, but in the future, Carter and I are going to sit down and just talk about this movie. This wonderful, wonderful movie. So that's that.
That'll be a ride.
Yes.
That'll be a ride. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our main topic for the show, and that's gaming health. Mm-hmm. So, and I think what we mean is by gaming health is not the health of a video game project, as interesting as that would sound, but more like how games affect our health. And this is something that's like all over the spectrum. People are really against it, or so a lot of people are really for it. I think that as time goes on, like, we've got a new generation that grew up with games, so it's becoming less and less of a hot topic as it was for when you and I were kids and our parents were.
When it was more of an unknown.
Yeah, yeah. But they're kind of all over the place. I mean, is it an addiction or is it not? It's kind of one of those things that they're talking a lot about. So
yes, they are. And then there's also the phenomenon. But I think all of this lines up, and it makes a lot of sense. There are the people who don't like the fact that there's a big push with the Wiimote or the Play the PlayStation version of which is Move or Play or something like that, or the Kinect, or these games, these interfaces that are not handheld controllers or keyboards, less stationary means of gaming. But I think in the end, we'll kind of come full circle, and we'll see, as with most things, there is a gray area of perspective here, which is mostly, I'm going to summarize before we dive into it, which is we're in a growing technology world. And as we add more technology to our lives, it's going to interface with us in different ways. So these things are all very natural for us to be doing. It is a natural conclusion that video game playing and console playing and casual gaming will have both a controller component, a relaxing component, but it will also have an exercise component. Because as more people become involved, different lifestyles and different demands will change the market.
Right.
So with that, and then eventually one day we'll probably cover in the future how next-gen consoles are going to have to be mindful of this development. That really almost like that eternal push that we have for technology, we're just trying to get to VR, virtual reality, essentially. So
Yeah.
the closer and closer we get to VR, what is VR going to be like? Is VR going to be that we step into a room with screens and the room detects where our body is, sort of like a holodeck sort of VR? That would be amazing. An almost an ideal VR would be that. Or is VR going to be a jack that we plug into the back of our head? That sort of thing.
Speaking of which, just momentarily, on a video that was released today on Vsauce 3, they did a video game. That's their video game, Vsauce, and they were talking about these people who have a multi-directional treadmill that hooks in. It works with Kinect, and it hooks into like Halo and Call of Duty and Skyrim, and you walk around.
That would be...
yeah.
Okay, I'm going to watch that. That sounds really cool.
It's pretty awesome.
So let's get into the concept, though. We're going to take this kind of down a psychological road. Something that a lot of people may this is a controversial topic. I'm going to start this off by saying that there are people who are going to react both ways on the spectrum. One, you're going to have people who say that, yes, this is a thing. Yes, we should be treating it. Yes, we should be aware of it. And then there's other people who are going to say, no, you're just blowing smoke. That is, not the case. You just don't like video games.
Right.
And I think both sides are right. I think there's going to be a tug and a pull between the two perspectives. So the first thing that needs to be said is right now, currently, the concept of a gaming addiction as being a real diagnosable disorder is not one. It isn't. It still hasn't been officially added to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, which is just the DSM, which is what psychologists use in order to, that is like the manual of things wrong with our brain, as official as it can get, I guess. So it hasn't been entered into the Dictionary of Mental Disorders, okay? So and there was a serious push for it to be added in around 2007, but since then, the APA, or the American Psychiatric Association, has come back and said, no, we need to do more research on this and find out if it is actually a thing. So, that's going to be part of this. Like, one, I guess the doctors out there, they don't know if it's necessarily a thing. Or they probably have a pretty good idea. And I guess it will come down to personal interpretation.
Yeah.
Is this a thing?
Well, I know that they say that if it was a thing, it would be very similar to like gambling addiction and that type of stuff.
That's true.
Right there. So of a compulsion, I believe is what they called it.
Yes, it is the same sort of disorder that is an impulsive disorder, that we cannot control our impulses in order to keep doing something that is psychologically pushing dopamine into our brain, a reward system, which, as far as gaming systems go, and especially MMOs, they have psychologically done their own research and figured out which sort of tasks give us more reward and will increase our playtime and thus will keep us subscribing to their games. So there is a and that's a whole nother topic, how games change their format based off of the human reward system, which is, being researched. So,
by Blizzard.
I think a game that has done, and I've read an article on this, and maybe I'll dig it up one day or we can talk about it, Farmville, which is a Facebook game that makes a lot of money off of simulation farms. And the way it makes money is that it puts everything on a time delay and it doesn't let you go. Psychologically, we as humans want to go back and make sure that our work doesn't rot.
Yeah.
Even if it's a virtual world, or we want something to go faster, or we don't like the fact that we put work into a virtual world and so they charge a small minimal amount of change in order to fix it virtually. Yeah. But this all plugs into the same impulse control, this reward system and everything like that. So
it's funny that you mentioned that, since we both are saying how we want to play SimCity, which works on a very similar thing. So it doesn't charge you anything to wait, but that's part of the reason you play SimCity.
That is why they want you, and Sims 3. Part of the reasons why I like playing it is it's still fun to play Sims 3, but when you're on Sims 3, the store is constantly blipping at you. Buy this cool outfit, buy this new town, buy this cool character, get this cool commercial place that your sim can go visit, buy this extra thing, share this on Facebook, share this with your friend, this is a memory, this is a moment, these things, EA especially. And so when Sims, the current Sims game is online only, there are some things that EA, this is not a mistake. This is not. This is them both using social networking to their advantage, and then they're also eventually going to probably have some incentives in there to continue feeding the beast, so to speak.
So what defines a definition, or what defines a that's what am I saying?
Dictionary. No.
What is the signs of an addiction, especially with video games?
Well, primarily what makes an addiction, or the two main things that any addiction can follow under, is one, a person needs more and more of the substance or the behavior to keep them going. Mm-hmm. And two, if the person does not get more of the substance or behavior, they become irritable and miserable.
So basically teenagers.
Yes, and it's funny you say that, because studies have shown with this pseudo disorder, that is not a disorder officially, but is certainly talked about and people are aware of it, are men who are under the age of 30.
That's interesting that it includes the 20s. I mean, I've worked with teenagers through youth programs and stuff, and you can see this so evident then, because they don't have the maturity level or the social skills to hide it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it really pops out, especially at youth group, when you have a video game system for people to play. It'll be the same kids, or those kids will dominate it and not let other kids play, and that's the only thing they care about while they're there. Mm-hmm. is getting to sit down in front of whatever video game system.
And there are a lot of side branches and stuff about these youths, these teenage boys or teenagers in general. I did see one statistic flash across when I was doing research, something like 47% of online gamers are women now.
So, I was going to say, it's definitely a lot more girls than it used to be, for sure.
Right. And so really the worry, or the collective societal worry about this pseudo disorder, which is not a disorder, but is probably a disorder. I'm going to say that my personal opinion that this is actually an impulse disorder, but it is with the youth. It is with developing teenagers, especially. And
Right.
it's becoming the concern is that you'll basically get 20-year-olds who have the mentality or the social experience of a 12-year-old, because they plug into gaming rather than developing social connections and everything like that. Now, this sounds very extreme to me. I'm going to underline this, that I don't feel that most people fall under this particular disorder, and that this disorder is, on the opposing argument, that this disorder is kind of blown out of proportion.
Right.
Like, they point to it as an excuse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, how dare you
Because
like
when
this
I
thing? Like, how dare you like gaming? Now I'm going to call you a gaming addict.
right.
Like, oh, well, no.
Like even when I was just talking there and saying the kids were addicted to gaming, they were showing these warning signs for addiction, but I would never classify them as any of the specific kids as having, clinically addicted
Mm,
to the game. Some of it I think is just being a teenager.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
hard.
And
Like,
and,
I'm
and
like, it's
when
hard.
they grew out of it.
There
So
is no more awkward time of our life than middle school, I think. Well, me personally, and most of the people I've talked to, nobody liked their experience in middle school. Like, that is just one
yeah.
of the worst times ever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, if you're under that much pressure, I can see why the concern would be on our youth. But I mean, this is an age-old argument. Like, oh, violence in video games are making our children violent. No,
Yeah.
yes, maybe. Like, the studies are going to continue on. The jury is still out on that. But we're talking mostly about, so what causes this sort of thing to happen. And usually this happens when somebody is just not happy with their real life,
Right.
and so they plug into a virtual one.
Right.
But also, the turnabout also happens where, if somebody did have an okay life, and then for whatever reason they plugged into a virtual one, and their real life suffers for it, but they don't stop. So there are some warning signs that I found repeated in several places, such as playing for increased amount of time. Oh, thinking about gaming during other activities. I mean, like, how are we supposed? Like, it's kind of like, oh, this is getting really, really gray area, because
Yeah.
so I don't know.
I mean, yeah, it's so hard because it's like, okay, what defines this? I've definitely thought about gaming during other activities, like when a new game comes out or something
Right?
that I've been playing with friends that I
But
really want to go home and play.
I would say that there are a lot of people in the world, David, that would say that we suffer from gaming addiction.
I probably right. You want to know how much time I spend gaming
How much time do you
in
spend?
general? I
Yes.
probably in a week in my current lifestyle, I probably play for like an hour to maybe an hour and a half in 7 days.
I
That is
would
not a
say
lot of
that you
time.
do not have a gaming addiction.
Yeah, that is not a lot of time.
No.
Uh,
But
uh, uh,
you think about gaming a lot.
I definitely, and I think it's just because it's in the cultural like circles of things that I follow. So I follow a lot of news that revolves around it, or pop cultural things that involve gaming or whatever, or my entertainment might be listening to podcasts or
Hmm.
let's plays while I'm doing something else. So I'm being productive,
Hmm.
but my brain is definitely being stimulated by game related things.
I would say that I play, on average, at least an hour of gaming every day, on average.
And
But,
and I'm not gonna I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
oh, yeah, no, I don't feel like I have a problem. No, because, one, there was a period of time when I know that I did have one. And I
Mhm.
know what my life was like then. And I know what my life is like now. And perspectively, saying in terms of control, in terms of being aware of it and knowing when I should walk away from it, those are things that I'm aware of. So, and it's not one, the things that I play gaming wise are a wide variety and largely social most of the time. But I also play exclusive games that's just a one player experience. And for the most part, I have embraced that I am just a person who enjoys games. I enjoy the concept of a game. I enjoy the exercising of my intellect in a game. So, I mean, I think I don't really plug into the notion that if you spend a lot of time doing something, that it means that it's negative. You know,
Right.
what you're passionate about as a person can be a wide variety. I just think that there are things that don't get the spotlight as much as gaming
Yeah.
that people are equally kind of ignoring. You know, another friend of mine had a really good example is it possible for somebody to get addicted to exercise?
Oh yeah, totally.
Definitely, right? Because
Yeah.
exercise produces a dopamine effect. And there are people who do get addicted to exercise. So, but for large, on the whole, exercise is viewed positively,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
on the whole, I think gaming still struggles with people trying to understand what we're doing. You know,
So before we get too much further, what was your peak when you were playing games a lot more? Like, how much were you playing?
oh, okay. So back in 2004,
Mhm.
I really plugged into World of Warcraft because I wasn't pleased with other things going on in my life. So I played that game from the moment that I got home from work until I went to bed. And then I would get back up and I would go to work. And then I would come home and play it again. And then I'd play it all weekend. That was the only thing I did. And I easily logged more than 40 hours, more than my job. I played that game more than my job.
Yeah.
So, but I've seen people who have it worse than what I
Mhm.
did. And um
So how many hours a night do you think that was?
well, let's think a hypothetical. So, because I don't remember exactly,
Right.
but 9 to 5. Let's say I got home at 5:30, and I didn't go to bed until 12:30 at least. Sometimes 1:30. I was sleep deprived for this game.
Hmm.
So, um,
That's like
let's say on
6 hours.
let's say on average it was 6 hours every day, 5 days of the week, and then over the weekend it was from morning until sleep.
Right.
So
Right.
at least 12 hours or more than that, probably closer to 16.
Right.
So two
I
days of 16 and then 5 days of 6, and do the math. So,
around the same time period,
hmm
late or more 2005. I went through a real rough patch in my life. I was engaged and I broke off the engagement, and
hmm
depression came in, and Halo 3 had come out, and I wound up making a lot of friends
hmm
through Halo 3. Ones that a long term that I've kept. I don't think we've talked about this before, but um, a couple of them I still talk to on a regular basis, and I don't play games with them anymore. But I had another friend, and he was in a similar bad place, and we just would play together every day. We were like a support system. There were definitely times where I would skip things to
hmm
play games. So I would think I was playing like
Did you
five
lie to
hours.
family or friends about how much you were gaming?
Oh no! I never hit it. It was more just like I just didn't do other things.
Did you
I
feel
mean,
irritable when you couldn't do it?
no, but I would feel like I was missing out
Okay.
for sure.
Okay.
So sometimes, not always. Sometimes I would just need to get away. Like I still spent a decent amount of time with my friends, but it was just kind of a rough time for me. So I would say for like a year, I played every night during the week, probably 4 to 5 hours. And sometimes it wouldn't always just be like it was single game. It's just like just chatting with the people and you know
Yeah.
playing
So
different games or whatever. So
I'm not certain what takes to get a person to pull out of that spiral, but nobody told me to stop playing necessarily. But I think one day happened when I realized that I was just bored and I was done. And then
yeah,
that was it. And then I moved on to other things. But I mean, as I and I started adding on purpose, adding other things back into my life in order to change my life and feel better about my life, I realized that that was not a good experience, that was a negative experience for me, that I was playing that one game obsessively and too much. And I think I did that for at least 6 months to closer to 9 months. I don't think I spent a whole year, But I definitely, there came a point with World of Warcraft especially that I cut it off and I just didn't go back. And I don't miss it, you know?
I never had to do a cutoff or anything. I never, at the time, it never felt like an addiction. It was very social for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always interacting with people. So, but then I just reached a point where I felt, I mean, during the whole thing, I was struggling with feeling alone. And
Mm-hmm.
I just realized I was like, although I have these people who are pretty cool, still today in my life that I talk to, at the time I was like, these people aren't here. And I need people here. And I was like, I need to find activities and hobbies that are fruitful. And I just started to do things.
Right. And that's
And
really what it is taking a step back and doing things again, like
yeah,
interfacing with the world in other ways.
and the more things I had to do, the less important it was for me to play games. And now,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I play games less than 2 hours a week, so I don't really play all that many games, but it doesn't, I mean, I still find them entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, I have a lot of things going on.
Right.
And,
And
and
I feel like, at least for myself, that I interface from a different angle about gaming. That gaming isn't about fixing my life. I don't game in order to avoid my life,
Mhm.
but it is honestly something that I find intriguing and that I enjoy and that I partake of quite often in my social circles. And this is what we do. Um, on the same note of those what you and I experience, I think, are what the majority of people experience,
Yeah,
and of loved ones when they watch a loved one become depressed and watch them escape their depression through gaming. I think this is very, very common, which is what people are trying to reach out and solve and being like, if we can just call this a problem, if we can give this a name or something diagnosable, then we will all be justified in watching out for it,
right.
basically. um, but there are things that happen with people that are extreme, just like anything. And there were a few that are disturbing. Like, there was a 17-year-old in Ohio that shot his mother and injured his father because they confiscated his Halo 3 video game.
Yeah.
But is that a video game problem, or is that just some other psychological disorder that was focused on a video game? You
Yeah,
know,
that's what I tend to think with that kind of thing.
right. There's people who played now other things that are a little bit harder to deny. Somebody suffering a blockage to their lungs because they played Xbox up to 12 hours in 2011. Now, is that was that a health problem that happened to strike during a gaming binge?
Right.
Who knows? Some of the other things that happen overseas with Japan and Korea, there are quite a few bizarre things that happen over there. But that culture itself, I think, or there's these cultures that tend to suffer from technology overdose. And I think especially over in that general area, they are way more intense of a society with pressures and stress to avoid than what we as Americans can appreciate. And so there are stories from Taiwan and Korea about people who either neglect their children, really sad things, like, neglecting their children while raising a virtual child. So, like, these things actually have happened. So there's this outcry for people to be like, we need to identify this thing that's happening. Well, I would have to say that we already have. We just call it other things, and as a society, we're reaching out to connect it to what we're doing today in modern times.
Yeah, I think there's probably signs to all this stuff, and it's just people coming up for excuses for not noticing it.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
indeed. But you know what? This is depressing. And I think we should also talk about gaming health as a positive, because there's tons and tons of really cool things happening out there that are positive that have nothing to do with gaming addiction whatsoever.
Yeah, but before we move on, I just want to make a funny note. You have in our notes we have that section listed that you were just referencing as when addiction borders on insanity, and I think of the definition of insanity, which is one of the things is when you repeat an activity over and over and over again, expecting a different result. And I kind of laugh at that because I was like, isn't that just gaming in general?
Well, yeah. I mean, there comes a point when you're going down the rabbit hole that you realize that everybody's insane. You
Yeah.
know, like you can
Yeah.
find you can look at yourself and probably diagnose any number of things, self-diagnose. And by the way, everyone, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a doctor. Nothing of this.
What?
This was just all research from the internet, and
Well, I have been watching a lot of Fraiser, so maybe I am.
oh, you might be. But it's interesting to look into. I think the thing that I took away from all of that that was the most interesting that is it was not actually added to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It is not a real thing necessarily, which I find we're in 2013. I thought it would have been a thing by now.
Yeah.
So that I did find that surprising. Let's talk about the cool things though.
Okay, let's hear it.
So as it turns out, you know, our grandmothers and grandpas out there, they game quite a bit more than what you think they do.
Yeah. And this kind of goes back to when you were talking about Farmville. And I
Yes.
think that a lot of the people, like their main demographic is older women, if I'm correct.
I don't know.
remember,
I didn't read up on that, but
I
that
think I
is,
read that somewhere.
yes. But an interesting thing that I ran across is that there is an astounding feedback right now about our senior citizens of the average age of 77, um, that they were told they did research basically, and this included everything from computer solitaire to free cell to puzzle games to crosswords and Sudoku and Wii bowling. Okay, so like it kind of, I think that the aspect here is either an activity or a brain coordination activity, which is most gaming in general. I think they took these senior citizens took part of a testing which took notes on both perceptual and cognitive and body effectiveness, the ability to use your body. And it basically showed that senior citizens of the average age 77, if they gamed, they did much better than their counterparts who did not. That they were less depressed, that they were more keen of mind, that they were able to even coordinate, and hand-eye coordination was much better, like a sizable amount. So the results are that basically as we get older, we should maybe look to gaming or these mental activities, and it's not a big surprise, really, but they do show healthy results that just like exercising your mind has a healthy benefit through game.
Yeah.
Which is
And you know, it I don't doubt that. One of the things I was thinking about as you were talking there is I think that it's a more and more generational thing going on. Like this technology wasn't available before in senior citizens, and it was probably a lot more difficult to get involved in things when you got older because there weren't these kind of things to do. And now they have, you know, game systems and stuff, or you know, games that you can play with a less amount of people or at a slower pace or whatever, and it's just kind of changed things. It has that reward system built into it, so you don't have people working with senior citizens. And now I'm thinking, of course, much more less capable of doing things on their own, like maybe in a nursing home scenario or rehabilitation center. You're not having people having to think up of creative rewards for doing activities. You've got this system that is very easily understood. If I do this, like I'm going to get the high score or something like that, So
It's just not just senior citizens, though. I found another study, and again, all of this will be in our information, but people who play action-based video games and computer games will typically make decisions 25% faster than others without sacrificing accuracy. And also, they also, like adept gamers can make choices and act upon them up to 6 times a second, which is 4 times faster than an average person who doesn't. So these studies are coming back that if you exercise your brain and you practice things like multitasking and you practice quick decisions and all these things that a lot of games challenge us in this way, that it is coming back with a positive, that we are becoming more skilled with our mind because of them. So there's a lot of evidence out there right now that this is exercising our brain. This is exercise for our brain. Intellectual exercise. It does count for something, you know?
Oh yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I've seen it in my own life.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I
it's
feel,
good.
yeah, I feel the same too. I feel like when I can, like a game like Sequence, I enjoy playing that game because it requires me to use multitasking. It requires me to, I can kind of just work my brain on Sequence, or like problem solving skills. I feel like I have gotten much better at problem solving because I play games like Myst. Like, it's like any sort of practice, it's going to work for you.
Yeah,
I got a cool list here.
yeah.
Yeah.
List of benefits.
A list of benefits
Let's hear.
so, this is just the benefits that come off this list, but I think it's pretty neat. 1, video games are therapeutic for children with chronic illnesses. All of these benefits, by the way, have been researched and have backing. So if you want to follow the link and kind of look into it, you can, but these are things that have been discovered. So, number 2, video games improve preschooler motor skills.
Hmm.
Video games reduce stress and depression,
Yeah, we
which,
both spoke to that. Yeah.
here's one that's really cool. Video games provide pain relief. So
That's interesting.
this was, I looked into that one because I'm like, what do you mean pain relief? Basically, there was a game that was developed called Snow World, and it's more like a virtual reality. But it was administered to veterans who got seriously injured in the war. And results have shown across the board that this game is more effective than morphine.
Oh, this is cool, but it also borderlines on the addictive
Yes, but
side of
I mean,
things.
it comes down to distraction. What is your mind paying attention to? Is it
Yeah.
paying attention to your pain, or is it paying attention to something outside of yourself? So this is, I'm going to include these links, but it was, there's a video story of about a man has suffered some severe burns and has gone through severe pain, but he was prescribed Snow World as one of his pain treatments, and
Huh.
it worked.
Huh.
So there's something I think that's fascinating, that we're looking into video games and this preoccupation of our mind to quite literally do what other people are. It's like the opposite effect of what this whole other topic has been about, which is if you can take your mind away from your physical pain, then it can actually work better than drugs. Maybe that's like the placebo effect, but I don't really know. But that is something that has happened and people are seriously looking into. It's video game treatment, which is fascinating. Video games can improve your vision. Video games can improve your decision-making skills, which we've already talked about. And video games can keep you happy in old age, which is all the depression things that I was talking about. Like senior citizens who play video games actually are less depressed
Hmm.
about being old. So that's kind of like the big picture about what's happening here overall in the mental gaming world.
Yeah, I think, you know, bottom line is video games can be beneficial or detrimental,
Mm-hmm.
and it really depends on your base personality. It really can't be, I don't think it can be blamed on the games themselves.
No,
I mean,
yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, for me, in my situation that we discussed earlier, like, I don't look back on that as a negative time because it helped me.
Right.
It was very therapeutic. Other people might look at that and be like, you were dealing with a problem there. But yeah, I was, and it wasn't video games.
Right. Maybe it was something else that ended up being poured into video games. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So,
overall, I mean, I'm going to keep my eye on it. I find the whole subject very fascinating. If listeners, if you have any thoughts or articles or interesting reads about video gaming and gaming health, or how it interacts with us as people, I want to hear more about it. Go ahead and let us know what you think it is. Is it a real thing? Is it not a real thing? Because the APA doesn't know yet. APA is still researching it. It's
yeah.
2013, and we still don't know if this is a thing. So, thing or not a thing, let us know.
Yeah. Leave a comment. Email us, aficionerdo@gmail.com. Tweet us.
Hmm.
All that kind of stuff. We
Hey,
want to hear what you have to say.
do you have
Yeah.
do you have a pick of the week?
Do I? I do. And okay, so when picking out my pick of the week here, I was like, oh my god, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Because I get so stuck on webcomics. That's my secret hidden addiction. Uh, but so I went with a YouTube show slash channel called VariantComics. Now, I really enjoy comic books, both serious and the classics and goofy. Web comics is more what I'm into right now, which is short 3 to 4 panels, gags or storylines. But I like to know what's going on with superheroes. That's what I grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't buy comics, just to be clear. I don't buy anything currently or seek out
Wait a minute,
anything
wait a minute, wait a minute.
specifically.
What about Jerk Spider-Man?
What about Jerk Spider-Man? I know. Maybe I should get into Jerk Spider-Man. Superior Spider-Man. With a name like that, they should have just called him Jerk Spider-Man.
So back to what you were saying.
So anyway, Variant Comics is a YouTube show weekly, and I think it's about like 10 minutes long. And basically, what the host does is he'll pick a topic every week to talk about, and it might be like the history of Batman or what's been going on with Superior Spider-Man, for instance. And this show's actually where I learned a lot of my information about that. And I then went and wikied it just because curiosity and that absorbing all the knowledge thing I talked about earlier. But I also provided a link they did an episode that was the Justice League of America versus the Avengers. And every now and then they do shows like this, and the guy, he doesn't give you an answer, but he lays down like all the negatives and positives of the characters, and then he lets the audience kind of decide, and he announces it on the next show who won, and audience vote or whatever. And they did one for Superman and Thor, and I thought that was pretty cool. So anyway,
yeah.
It's a really cool show. Like every time I watch it, I'm like, oh, this is probably going to be lame. I'll turn it off in a minute. And I always wind up watching it the whole way through because the guy is really good at what he does and talking about it. And at the end of the show, they do their weekly picks. I think it comes out on Wednesdays because that's when new comics come out. And at the end of the show, they do their weekly picks, and he just says like the comics that came out this week that you should look for. And I'll be darned if it doesn't make me wish that I had the patience to read comic books. I don't. Because they move so slow, and they're so expensive. But I like to hear, because when he talks about what's interesting about this week, like you kind of get a gist of what happened recently or whatever. Like he teases it just enough to make you interested. So definitely, if you like comics or superheroes in general, check out Variant Comics on YouTube.
Very, very cool.
How about yourself?
Well, I have been focusing on Star Wars this week, so my pick of the week is Space Janitors, which is a Star Wars satire, which is produced by Geek and Sundry. So I would encourage people, one, Geek and Sundry, I know I've talked about it before, but the actual series, Space Janitors, the whole first season of the web show Space Janitors is available on a playlist, which I will have linked for everybody to watch. It's so funny. It is so funny to me, and I would love it if more people watched this show. And I want that second season so bad. But for me to get a second season, I got to promote it to all you peoples so that you go and watch the playlist and you up the view count and you up the comments, because that is what Geek and Sundry uses in order to get their demographic, and so they can say, yes, Space Janitors, we're releasing a second season on Geek and Sundry. So yes, please go check out Space Janitors. It's about 8 episodes or so.
Yeah,
really very funny though.
The premise for people who aren't familiar is it's like the janitor level employees on basically their version of the Death Star. Yeah. And it's great because they'll get attacked by like rebels, and the rebels will come through and just completely ignore them because they're janitors.
They're janitors, yeah. But there's lots of other things that only they have to deal with, problems only they have to deal with, and it funny in the same way that Spaceballs is kind of funny. It is really good show, great show. Yeah. So go watch that. That's my pick.
Great. Well, I think that's been our show.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about Clue here pretty soon, probably. But we'll see you all next week, and give us a hashtag at Aficionerdo on Twitter. Check out our Facebook. We have a Facebook too at Aficionerdo. Is that right? Yeah. And of course, feel free to comment or just let us know what's going on. We have a Gmail account, aficionerdo@gmail.com. We check that. So we would love to hear from you. And thank you for joining us.
I've been David Moulton.
And I'm Elaine Eightbytes. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.